Mark, Jeff, and Adam, all young, dumb, and brash. On a Halloween night, they decided to clash with an old urban legend they'd heard from their friends of a spooky old mansion where terror transcends. "Come on," said Mark with a laugh and a grin. "They say that the candy hides secrets within. Snickers, Reese's, and Twix, they're all cursed. Teenagers missing, their stories rehearsed. Their friends showed the wrappers, all weathered and torn. Weird names in the ingredients, distorted, forlorn. One Snickers said, Franklin's guts on its back. Reese's had remnants of Jack in its pack. Twix had a label that made Adam nearly choke. Aiden's twisted flesh, barbecued and smoked as a joke. The boys just laughed. It's all just a trick. Someone's been playing a joke really slick. But deep down inside, curiosity stirred. What if the legend had truth in its word? "Let's check it out. What could go wrong?" Jeff urged, his voice both steady and strong. "The mansion's abandoned. It's Halloween night. Let's grab some of that candy. Give ourselves a fright." The mansion loomed large on the outskirts of town. Its windows were shattered, the paint peeling brown. Cobwebs draped over every stone ledge, dead leaves piled up like a morbid hedge. On the porch, a bucket overflowing with treats. King-sized candy bars piled high in the heap. Mark's eyes lit up, and Adam's did too. They grabbed for the bars. "Man, this shit is true." But then Jeff gasped, his fingers frozen in place. The wrapper on his Reese's was no candy case. "Bone meal butter from body and soul," he read out loud, his voice almost losing control. Mark's Snickers had crushed veins inscribed on the side. Adam's Twix simply read, "Twisted intestines inside." Their laughter was gone, replaced with a sudden chill, but curiosity drove them, pushing their will. "Let's go inside, figure this out," Mark apprehensively said, ignoring the voice in his head telling him that they might be the next ones dead. The door creaked open with a ghastly moan. The air smelled rotten, like aged, dried bone. They wandered deeper into the pitch-black hall, cobwebs draped like curtains against the wall. The floorboards creaked as they moved through the space. The deeper they went, the darker the place. Suddenly, lights flickered and gave them a view of grotesque figures waiting, like shadows askew. A family of creatures, hideous, vile, their faces twisted in an inhuman smile. With limbs too long and eyes sunken deep, their flesh hanging loose, their posture a nightmarish creep. "Welcome," one rasped, its voice full of dread. "We've been waiting for you to join the rest of the dead." Another laughed, its voice wet and thick. "We'll show you our craft. Think of it as like a horror movie flick." They grabbed the teens, no chance to fight, pulling them into the darkness, away from the light. And there, in a room, foul and obscene, the process of candy was shown in an indescribable scene. Cauldrons of blood and bones ground to dust, melted flesh mixed with a sugary crust. Organs were sliced and diced with a laugh, their essence boiled into caramel baths. "We turn teens like you into Halloween bars, your blood, your bones. They make tasty treats by far." They pointed to a Twix on a table nearby, its ingredients reading, "Tasty teens who dare to try." Mark was first, his screams muffled with haste, his skin peeled off, ground into a paste. Jeff was next, his bones snapped in two, mixed into nougat for the candy crew. Adam's fate. They saved him, the best for last, boiling his flesh into a peanut butter cast. With each gruesome touch, the teens were erased, turned into candy bars, their lives defaced. Their likeness became the candy wrappers, their names on display, for the next Halloween, for the next batch of kids to enjoy. Hooray. In In some small, forgotten town in the heart of Kansas, on lands windswept bare, lies a tormented people with a secret, shrouded in scare. Each Halloween night when darkness falls deep, the town wakes up to a ritual they must forever keep. Not pumpkins or treats or smiles bright and sweet, but dead things and rot fill each doorstep and street. Old cabbage, dead roadkill, and meat, foul and gray. These are the gifts they put on display. Every door in the town, from Main Street to Pine, offers up rancid scraps like an unholy shrine. For the trick-or-treaters that come from beyond to feast on the gifts that humans would shun. Sheriff Mitchell, a man of the law and an unspoken leader of the town, knew of this horror and would remind the townsfolk of what was soon to be coming back around. He'd warn every newcomer, young couple and old, of the tale that's as chilling as the October cold. Jake and Lorraine, new in town and full of cheer, moved into a home as Halloween drew near. They laughed off the warning, thinking it fake, for surely no one could seriously take such a grim practice on Halloween night with dead animals and rot, a disturbing sight. So they scoffed at the sheriff, jokingly shrugged him away, saying, "We'll give out candy the old-fashioned way." Lorraine filled a bowl with chocolate delights, while Jake hung up streamers and orange and purple lights. "Dead things," Lorraine chuckled. "It's all just a joke. A bit of fun for the townsfolk. They just have to provoke." The neighbors all frowned, shaking heads in dismay, for they knew what would come if the pair didn't obey. But Jake and Lorraine waved them all off, ignoring the warnings with a casual scoff. As dusk turned to dark, the cold winds blew, with clouds swirling thick, blotting out skies too. From the shadows they came, one by one, strange figures of children, silent and numb. They wore shredded clothes, old and tattered, with eyes that looked hollow, dark and battered. Faces pale as death, with mouths set wide, but no voices or laughs, just a creeping stride. Jake and Lorraine, unfazed by the sight, welcomed them in with warm-hearted delight. They handed out sweets, each candy wrapped tight, ignoring the figure's strange look of spite. Yet, as each child took candy in hand, a whisper stirred, chilling like whispers of sand. "Fools," one rasped, with a breath stale and foul, as each trick-or-treater let out a low howl. At the stroke of midnight, the last one had passed, leaving silence so deep it seemed to hold fast. Lorraine felt a shiver, cold as the grave, as shadows grew thick like a slow-rising wave. A knock at the door, a soft, haunting sound, echoed through halls that had darkened around. Jake opened it wide, but no one stood there, just the scent of decay lingering in air. The lights flickered low, casting ominous gloom, and strange shapes crept forth from the corners of the room. Footsteps echoed, though none could be seen, as whispers grew louder, obscene and unclean. Lorraine's heart pounded, her pulse quick and wild, as the ghostly giggles of some unknown child filled the house with a sense of dread, and a chill like fingers tracing the dead. What is happening?" Lorraine tried to say, as shadows danced in a macabre ballet. The candies they'd given, once sweet and neat, now melted and spoiled, crawling with heat. From the corner of the room, a figure did rise, a small, twisted child with hollow eyes, its smile stretched wide, a gaping black maw, revealing decay, its teeth rotten and raw. "You didn't listen," it whispered, voice low. "This candy you gave was your fatal blow." The other children appeared, rising from dark, eyes growing with hunger, a terrible mark. Lorraine tried to scream, but they bound her tight, while Jake was trapped in the spectral blight. Invisible chains wound their limbs in place as the ghostly children leaned close to each face. One took Jake's arm, nails like claws, scratching his skin in slow, greedy draws. Another child, with lips split wide, pulled Lorraine's hair as she writhed and cried. "You ignored our customs, our offerings, dear. Now you'll join us in the land of fear." The children chanted, each word a hex, binding Jake and Lorraine with curses complex. Razor-sharp fingers cut skin to the bone, while ghostly whispers turned into a moan. Their eyes filled with terror as they saw the veil between worlds crack with no flaw. The floor fell away, a pit to the abyss, where flames licked up with a deadly hiss. Their chains grew heavy, pulling them low as the creatures chanted, loud and slow. Down they were dragged to a cavern of fire, a realm of despair and endless mire. In this place of torment, their souls would descend to a twisted dimension that would never end. As dawn broke the town with light soft and meek, the house lay empty, silent and bleak. Sheriff Mitchell arrived with the townsfolk in tow, and they sighed with regret, heads hanging low. Blood marked the walls, a tale darkly told, with foul symbols etched, both ancient and old. The sheriff shook his head, voice low and grim. They thought it was foolish, they didn't listen to him. One neighbor murmured, "This is the way for those who ignore what we say." They covered the house in shadows anew, for the townsfolk knew well what horrors pursue.